Okay, so the third pillar for high note range is strength. When we're doing all this stuff with the fast air, it creates a lot of pressure. And the tendency is, if there's pressure, it's going to be going in all directions. It's not just pushing it out. And so what happens is it's pushing right here, and it's pushing right there, and it's trying to get your lips out of the perfect position. And the first one, we talk about the buzz, and we want to try and get those lips in the exact perfect position. Once you add this high pressure, it's working against you. Now, to be able to do this thing, a lot of it, people will just say, well, I'll play a whole lot of high notes. And yes, I think that's gold. But I found a couple of things that are really, really very effective. And a lot of the stuff we're doing in the exercises, if you haven't seen the other videos where we're talking about the fast air, those exercises are gold for strength. But just for strength, my favorite two on this one, number one, it's a Princess Bride reference, is the To the Pain, and the other one I call To the Death. And so To the Pain is an isometrics thing. Isometrics is when you clench a muscle and it's it's working, but it's not moving. That's the iso part of it, means fixed. And so you're working the muscle even though it's not moving. Okay. So if you imagine yourself playing your highest, double G, triple F, whatever, and you firm up your lips like that, and you're feeling this right here, and this is just as firm as you possibly can. And there will be some firmness across here, but I focus mostly on the corners. And you hold that thing, I would say for about, typically I say just 1 minute, and then you rest for a minute. Then you hold it for a minute, rest for a minute, and you do that for at least 5 reps, and I would recommend 10 reps. And you do this thing, so that takes you 20 minutes. And again, you could do this while you're driving the car or watching TV or playing video games or in your mouth or whatever, or in the shower, whatever. But so you do this thing and you start getting to the point where your muscles are significantly stronger than you'll ever need when you're playing trumpet. So then when you're playing trumpet, everything you're doing there is just like stupid easy. You got to be careful. If you just do this, it's never going to be exactly how you're going to do it when you're playing trumpet. And so you're beefing up muscles, but sometimes it might not be beefing up exactly the right muscles. So I feel like you need to do that to the pain thing. And then augment it with some actual playing. Oh, To the Pain on this one, if you can't make it to the 60 seconds, your lips start burning sometimes, after a while. And so you go until it starts burning just a little bit, and then you hold it for like another 5 or 10 seconds past that, and that's To the Pain. So the second one is the To the Death. On this one, you play a scale, and some people call it chopping out. So you play a scale, you're going to play loud, and you're going to play it non-stop. You're not going to give yourself any rest. You're going to play 1 octave scale, and I would do twice tongued, twice slurred, twice tongued, twice slurred. And no breaks in between. You just take a breath and you go, go, go. And eventually you're going to get to the point where your top note of whatever scale you've picked doesn't sound as good. You don't want to practice sounding bad. So when you get to that point, you chop off the top 2 notes, and then you just do the first 6 notes of the scale. And you keep going and you go and you go. When that top 6th note sounds bad, then you go down to 4 notes of the scale. And you do that 2 times tongued, 2 times slurred, over and over, no breaks, really loud. Eventually you get to the point where that 4th note of the scale doesn't sound very good. Again, you don't want to practice sounding bad, so you cut it back. At this point, you just play your first note of the scale, and you play it, and you play it, and you take a breath, and you go, and you go, and you don't give yourself any breaks. And eventually you get to the point where your lips are just quivering, and you cannot hold that note any longer, and that's To the Death. And so this one right here, when you're doing it, be careful that you're not trying to, you're making sure you're being careful about all the things we're talking about. So you're thinking about the lip angle, you're thinking about the tongue stuff that we've talked about. Make sure that you're not using too much pressure to be able to get the thing. And if you need to use that, then at that point you've decided, okay, I don't need to do those notes. Now you just do the lower chunk and you move on. So make sure you're not using too much pressure when you're doing that. Because you'll be able to go longer, but it starts giving you bad habits that are just not worth it. Anyway, so those 2 things, that one I really like doing every other day. The To the Pain one, the isometrics, I would say do that 5 or 6 times a week. And if you can do it, do 2 sets of 10. And I've had a bunch of kids who will do this. One kid was stuck on a B flat. He couldn't get the E flat above high C. And so he came to me and said, what do I do? And I gave him all the stuff, and he started doing the tongue stuff really, really diligently. So in 6 weeks, and he was doing 20 reps. So that takes 40 minutes. Again, you could do that while you're doing other stuff, but it takes a little bit of willpower. But so he was doing 20 reps, 20 minutes, takes 40 minutes to get there, and he did that for 6 weeks. And after 6 weeks, he had a big fat E flat above high C. So he got a 4th in range. Now he got his braces off, and then that kind of knocked him back. And I feel like the big issue there was when your lips are further out, you're using slightly different muscles, and that was the big issue there. So he got knocked right back down to a B flat, and he was doing all this, the air stuff and going over it again and again. And he said, "Hey, why am I not able to get it? I've been doing this like mad." And I said, "Well, you doing everything?" And he's like, "Well, not really, just the tongue stuff, because that's what did it the first time." Anyway, he said, "Okay, do the strength stuff." And so he started doing that like mad. And after, so that was the 20 reps or whatever. But he was doing that about 40 minutes a day as well. And after about 6 weeks, he got his big fat E flat right back. And that was enough for him, and he kind of backed off a little bit. He kept doing some of the stuff to keep it, but all the way through high school, he just had a blazing E flat. I have another example of a kid who was playing. He was in high school as a 9th grader. He could barely play a G above the top of the staff, like that one right there. And so, he was 10th grade. So he's 10th grade, and he could barely play it. He was just struggling for the life of him to get that G. And so we went through the whole thing. His lip setup was significantly less efficient. It was too low, so he was playing right here on the vermilion, and he also, his bottom lip was sticking out way too far. So we got him with that new setup, and I would say probably within a month he was back to where he was playing a G. It did knock him down, but he was playing the G, and then it sounded good, and it didn't sound like he was dying trying to get this note. And then we started doing the tongue stuff, and about 3 months later, he was hitting high C's like mad. And he went from barely being able to play a G to hitting nice, solid high C's. And he just kept going at it and going at it. And about 9 months later, he was hitting double G's, and not like kind of squeaking them out. He was like blazing it to the wall. And just seeing it happen time and time again. One gal was doing the same thing. She got her friends in on it, and so this is actually one of the good things for making a habit. But so every time they get in the car to go to lunch or whatever, they were all trumpet players. And they're like, "Okay, set the timer," and they started doing the lip exercises. They're all doing it, and so she was getting double A's by her senior year, and like blazing fat double A's. And that year in the marching band, all the kids that were hanging out together, there were 10 trumpets in this little band, and 8 of the trumpet players had high C's, and 6 of the 10 had a double G. And it's just because they're all doing this at the same time. They're just going at it. And everybody was reminding each other and all that. But so if you do it, it works. If you take this information and you say, "Oh, that's really cool, I want to do that," and then you forget about it, of course, it's not going to make any difference. So you got to make sure it happens. We are going to talk in one more thing about how to make this a habit, because all the good intentions of the world aren't going to get you anywhere unless you start getting something consistent. And that really is where it comes from, as habits.